Welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home program. I'm Jenelle Riley from Variety. Before we're joined by our guest today, I want to let you know that the SAG-AFTRA Foundation is a nonprofit organization that relies entirely on donations to provide emergency assistance and free educational programs to SAG-AFTRA artists. This conversation today is made possible thanks to the generosity of our supporters. Over the past year, the foundation has given over $6.5 million in COVID relief to more than 7,000 performers. If you are a SAG-AFTRA artist and you need help, please ask. And if you can help, please give. Information can be found in the description of this video. Thank you for your support. And now please join me in welcoming today's guests from Genius ARETHA, Malcolm Barrett, Patrice Covington, and Rebecca Naomi Jones. Thank you all so much for being here today.
Thanks for having
us.
Absolutely. This is an audience of SAG actors, so I actually always like to go back to the very beginning and ask, how did you get your SAG card? And I want to start with Patrice because this is your first TV project, isn't it? So I'm curious.
This was my very first TV show acting. I had been on other things like to promote shows. Most of my career had been in theater and Broadway previously. So I had been on TV doing things, so they made me join SAG a long time ago. I remember the last check that I got though, and they were like, okay, that's it. And that was from when I was on the Wendy Williams show. And I was performing singing background with one of the most perfect singers, Let Us See. And that was it. I got my card then.
Wow. Amazing. I thought you were going to say they had to Taft-Hartley you for this show, but no, of course you had a lot of appearances. Malcolm, what about for you?
My first one, I have no freaking clue. I'm old. My SAG card, I might have got maybe doing maybe around Sopranos or something like that. Maybe it's something there. Yeah. I'm one of the few people that pull a gun on Tony Soprano and live. But but then I get shot in the nuts right after near the end. Spoiler alert for that
series
episode of Sopranos.
Yeah. I think
it also ends in darkness, by the way.
I think you should just tell people you got on the Sopranos because that's just the coolest thing to say.
It sounds like a cool thing to say, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just looked it up on IMDb, apparently. That's what happened. That's how I also find out about my new jobs. I like to go to IMDb and see if I'm working.
You would not believe how many actors tell me that. Rebecca, what about for you?
Well, I don't remember exactly if this is how I got my SAG card. I might have gotten it as just like Patrice, like from performing on a morning show or something with a theater gig. But my first TV show job was on the series Fringe.
Oh, I love Fringe.
Yeah, I was in, I think, season 3. I played a young mom with a little baby in a stroller in the teaser of an episode. And the whole thing starts, I got this job because I am a born and raised New Yorker, because the whole audition and the whole scene is me, taking the kid down the steps into the subway, somehow getting through the turnstile, getting down to the other steps, and then waiting for the train. And after I go through Grand Central, I'm singing the kid a lullaby, and then I have to take all those steps down to the train and wait for the train. So so much of my audition, I think, worked because I really was thinking about how a person gets a stroller down the subway stairs and through a turnstile, or you have to wait for the person to, get you through press the button and have the attendant get you through the turnstile or whatever. So, so much of the unsaid stuff, I think, that got me that job. And then the important part of the story is that soon after that, I get pushed onto the subway tracks and I die.
What? By who?
On the show.
No, I'm a ghost.
Wait, so you are referring to your character gets pushed?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I go back and get mine again. Both of y'all were involved in killings.
No, right? Something's wrong.
How?
But it's really funny because they used a stunt woman for the part when they actually pushed me. But if you're really looking carefully, it's like that curl pattern is not like mine at all.
Now I gotta go back and watch this. I have the DVD set, so I literally can. Well, congratulations to all of you on your stellar work in Genius, Aretha. You all play people who had a profound impact in Aretha Franklin's life and career. I'm curious, how much did you know about Aretha? But then how much did you know about these people when the project came its way to you? And let's start with Malcolm.
Sure. Well, there's notoriously not a lot of information about Ted White. If you look up Ted White, if you just Google, you're going to find about 7 other people who are like, district, local, head of board of paper. So it takes, yeah, huge paper following. So it takes a bit of research. I mean, there's respect. I mean, a majority, there's the books, a majority of the stuff actually just covers Aretha. And then you'll see like a couple paragraphs about Ted. So I've read some things. I've read the articles. I think it was the Rolling Stone article. I might have the magazine wrong. Forgive me. But there's a couple things that you get to get an idea, and they all relatively say the same thing, which is this sort of idea of this sort of gentleman pimp, and this individual that was sort of always around her. But in all honesty, no matter what the actual history is, a lot of times you're relying on a script because, no matter what it is, there's only so much you can put it into there if it's not on the page. But aside from that, a lot of what I did was there's a recording of Aretha and him. And I think it's Respect. I could have the documentary wrong. I think I would just Google and YouTube different videos of Ted and Aretha. And it's really just the same sort of loop. These guys already know. I had like a 5-minute video of all of the Ted videos and his interactions. And so I would kind of look at that and like literally, especially if there was long breaks between scenes, I would look at that same sort of 5-minute video that I edited just to get myself comfortable in his speech patterns and his movements, how he was around Aretha. And so, that is what I sort of offered in that part is a glimpse or a screenshot into the individual as best as I could.
Absolutely. And Patrice, what did you know, if anything, about Irma?
Well, first of all, nothing. I never.
Well, now we do, thanks to you.
Oh my goodness. I'm an Aretha Franklin fan. I grew up listening to Aretha Franklin. It was, we often say that it was the soundtrack that's like embedded into the fabric of our lives. It means certain things to different people. For me, it's like, okay, wake up and clean up. When somebody's cleaning that, playing that, I know it's time to get up. And just, so many of my like early auditions into theater, when I didn't know that not everything calls for an Aretha Franklin or a Whitney Houston song for your audition, I was doing that. As you can see, I love Princess Whitney as well. But she was just a big part of my life musically. I had never heard of Irma Franklin ever. I was doing a project with the late and great Allie Willis, who was she's a wonderful woman, but she's a musician, and she taught me about Irma Franklin. She was like one of the first people that I told that I booked it. She goes, I know Irma. And I knew Irma, she said, and she started telling me about some of the great songs that she was a part of, and that she was, I knew she was a background singer, obviously from the audition, but she started giving me a lot more details. And then she was the first to tell me that she was the woman who originated Piece of My Heart, who we all know was made famous by Janis Joplin, but Irma Franklin actually did it first, and it was amazing. And that was my first intro into her. Same as Malcolm, a lot of online research. Loved looking at the way she dressed. Like her beauty was just so elegant and classy. I often feel like I lived in the wrong era. Like I probably would have been the bomb back then. But anyway, so I just kind of like
you the bomb now.
You the bomb.
Thank you. But yeah, just I did research on her music online. There's, people loved this woman and her music. And they have done whole like YouTube docs on their careers. So quite informative and just really special to have somebody like Allie Willis, who was, a part of the whole like Detroit Motown family creating music during that time, who could give me some real good tidbits.
That's great. And Rebecca, for you?
Yeah, I also, was a student of the YouTube school, because there is, as Patrice and Malcolm said, there is really little about, there's very little about the Franklins in general, and about, I think, even Aretha's personal life in general out there. But to find stuff about the siblings and the other family members, it's a real task. There were a couple of articles here and there. There was Carolyn's obituary. She died very young. There were little things to find here and there, but it was very minimal. And I think photographs are incredibly helpful. I think regardless of the role, I love looking at photographs if it's just for era or just like time and place. But really a lot of it is like fashion and how the person represented themselves and hair and all of that. That's really helpful. You get a vibe. But I also really loved, there's some great documentary footage of Carolyn and of performances. And then the other thing that I found really helpful is that on Instagram, I put in a search for #Carolyn Franklin, and there are Carolyn Franklin fans out there. And so just every once in a while, I get a little notification of like a new Carolyn Franklin post. And that was just incredibly helpful, because people are playing her records or talking about, just like people have, materials from that time. And just any of that stuff was really, really helpful. Videos that I hadn't seen on YouTube. Which just helped in terms of how she moved, how she's, her sense of humor, all of that.
This whole ensemble is so fantastic, but obviously you all share scenes with the remarkable Cynthia Erivo. Patrice, you actually worked with Cynthia on the Color Purple, so I have to imagine it helped having this prior relationship when it came to playing sisters.
Yeah, we actually played sisters from time to time in The Color Purple as well, because I was Squeak, but I understudied the role of Nettie, who is Celie's sister.
No way. I didn't know that.
I did. But yes, it was quite a reprise of that time. And I have to say, The Color Purple has just always been, in the whole cast, we always say it is the show that keeps on giving, truly. Mm-hmm. And even actually Oprah told us that first when she bust through our rehearsal one day. She goes, this show has continued to be a blessing to me, and it will be the same. Everything purple is divine. And it has been that us getting this show, as far as we know, didn't have anything with us working together previously. But I do believe that all things divine work, and it was really nice to reprise as sisters.
Did you say who was it? Oprah?
Yeah, Oprah Winfrey.
Okay. I didn't.
Wikipedia. Yeah.
Okay. You didn't say her last name, so I wasn't sure who it
was. Okay. Yeah. Interesting lady.
For you, I don't know if you were familiar with Cynthia at all, but obviously you have such wonderful chemistry together. Does that just develop instantaneously, or does it take time?
I think it's sort of a combination of like, if it's your job as an actor to find a way to make that chemistry happen, because we are siblings, we know each other, we are family. So I think a part of it is like in the beginning, it's just, you could kind of just like go for it, you force it. And I think it was really helpful for me that Patrice and Cynthia did know each other, because, Patrice would naturally just be comfortable with Cynthia and physical. And I at first felt a little bit like, oh, I can't just help myself to national treasure Cynthia Erivo. I'm a little, I gotta be, but then it's like, you just gotta kind of get in there, because that's the gig. And I think Anthony Hemingway, our director, was also really helpful in terms of that, just like reminding us of how it is to be a family and how you move around a space together. And then I think as the time went on too, I think we became more comfortable with each other. We understood each other's rhythms. And especially, I think, after we suspended production for a while because of the pandemic, I think once we came back, we all felt so grateful to be working again and to be able to finish the project. And so I think, naturally after just having that time to marinate, on the work that we wanted to come back to, I think the chemistry was even more natural. But yeah, I'd been a fan of Cynthia. I had seen The Color Purple, and I definitely projectile cried. So it had an impact. I saw it with my mom too, and that was very special. So yeah, so this was a gift.
Malcolm, what about for you? I'm curious if there was any kind of a chemistry read with Cynthia before being cast, or if it's just a matter of you trust two really good actors.
I think they just trust two really good actors. I think that there wasn't really much of a doing beforehand. I talked to who was holding the meeting with me at the time, Diana Sun and Susan Laurie Parks. I almost blanked on Susan Laurie Parks' name. She's famous.
Because we never say her name, it's just letters.
SLP. I call her Slip. Yeah, I mean, really, it's just, not slap. I mean, you kind of just, I mean, it's not as sexy as you want it to, as it would sound, but you kind of just do the work. Do you know what I mean? You kind of just, you do the lines, you talk, you do your best to figure out the scenes and work them out with the other actor, the director, and, hopefully it conveys some sort of relationship. That's kind of one of the harder things to do when you're working, particularly with newer actors, or with actors who haven't met before, is suddenly pretending to have a 20-year, 30-year relationship, particularly when it's one that has as many ups and downs as this relationship had in real life and on screen. So, it's always sort of a tenuous, high wire act. Really, you're doing your best to not let people see how hard it is to create this feat, which is why it was always enjoyable to see, for me, Patrice and Rebecca on screen, because they are such real life friends, and playing these sisters who are in the position they're in is always really fun to see the chemistry that they would have.
And for each of you, what did end up being the biggest challenge of taking on these roles, adapting to these time periods, singing in some cases? Was there a moment or a scene that you would pinpoint as your biggest challenge?
I mean, for me, it was the fire poker scene.
Sure.
Because that was high drama, and it happens really quickly. I think it's always easier when you have like a lot of buildup. And this is like this scene kind of, it escalates so quickly, but there's so much, I think, so much baggage underneath it. It comes quickly, but it is not out of nowhere. I think that, for me, it was like, what was helpful in terms of the scene is that Carolyn is a peacemaker in the family. She is neutral. She's always wants to make other people comfortable. But I think underneath that is a lot of jealousy and bitterness and disappointment about how far or not far her own career had gotten. And then, she feels this real betrayal from her sister, and all of a sudden she just snaps. And that scene felt like a real challenge for me. Yeah, that would be my big one.
Malcolm, what about for you?
The hardest scene for me is probably anytime I had to hit Cynthia Erivo is sort of an awkward thing, just because I'm worried about my money and the show. That was pretty difficult. That's hard, and I mean, and in all honesty, and these guys have heard this. The hardest scene is probably, I think it's the end of the first episode, and they kind of all string together because I kind of binge them. But I think it's the end of the first episode where, after we've gotten into an altercation, and then I'm sort of yelling at her through the door, which was like incredibly hard. I feel weird because I've told you guys all this story, but it's incredibly hard because it was, on the page it was about 2 or 3 sentences of me yelling on the door. Yeah. Like, I don't think they really timed out how long that scene was going to be with how long I would be behind there. So, I mean, having that in my head, I kind of knew I was going to have to go on a sort of tirade. But that was the hardest because it's basically me improvising verbally abusive language in 1950s dialect for like a good 2 or 3 minutes, for a good couple minutes. And so I had to do that a couple times. And then I had to do that, I think, once in a booth. And so that was probably the most emotionally like a lot place. And yeah, and then we had to reshoot that scene. Yeah, so I don't, you know, it was, that was the hardest one.
That's almost a time when you want them to give you the written words. Like, I'd rather not improvise here.
Yeah, I was okay with it. It's a challenge. You know what I mean? I was like, I'll come up with another synonym for Ofe. So, you know, it was interesting. It was interesting.
And for you?
Yeah, I want my Emmy for writing and acting.
So silly. I didn't have any challenges. Like, it was just all me, you know, like it was just, can we do something new?
Natural, all of it.
Very, very natural, you know. I will talk about my first day on set.
Sure.
I think that's the most like apparent thing to me. I literally didn't know what anything was going to be like. You know, I actually didn't even, this show was such a blessing. I did not have a screen test or anything. So I literally was like, well, I hope I really am as good as they think I am. Like, I've never done this. I didn't do a screen test and I was very nervous. And so just going into my first day with confidence and trust of everybody, I learned so much from everyone so fast. Malcolm literally taught me what all the acronyms on like the forms were. Like, I didn't know what is it? Day out of day, the dude.
Oh, the
I
dude.
didn't know what that meant. There's so many people with so many letters and numbers after their names. I was like, after death? I don't know what, you know, like it was just a lot for me. Just in general, just walking in the door. So just my first day, I think I had Courtney B. Vance and Pauletta Washington literally gathering me up and saying, you got this, you got it. So yeah, just walking in there with confidence on my first day would be my answer.
And by the way, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but have you met ARETHA?
I did meet ARETHA. Yes, the queen. During the Color Purple, I told you, blessings. She came to the show and she waited for all of us. We had a cast of about 20 people, and she waited for each person to come out and speak to her and took a picture with all of us. And my role in the show was like, I play squeak, which is mostly the comic relief, but I do get to sing, like really, really sing at one time in the beginning of the show. And she said, "You the girl that had on the yellow dress?" And I said, "Yes." And she goes, "Well, you can sing." And I said, "Okay." I didn't even know what else to say. Like, this is the queen telling me that I can sing. Like, this is so beautiful. We snapped a picture and we went a long way, but she was just so gracious and very queenly. It was amazing.
That I can't even imagine. That is so amazing. And I actually am curious because playing a real person, you know, brings a certain responsibility with it. And Irma and Caroline are no longer with us, but Malcolm, I've heard you say you deliberately did not want to consult with Ted White in order to do this performance.
Yeah, so that's a misprint.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes. Yeah, because it's funny because I so read that and I was like, that's not true. So the way it works, SAG actors, is you don't necessarily get to me. You don't necessarily get to me. Is that a weird thing?
Yes.
You don't necessarily get SAG actors. That's what we're on, right? We're doing the thing. I think there's a misconception that you automatically get the home phone number of whoever you play. And so I think there was a thing that said like, I think they missed the enthusiasm of what I was saying, which is like, no, I definitely didn't talk to him because I just wanted it to be known that like I didn't have that relationship. But at the same time, it's, you know, look, it would have been great to have access. I also don't know how much he would wanted to have been a part of this. It doesn't portray him in the best light. And I definitely know one or two people who know him personally who were surprised by his personal behavior. So I think to a certain extent, there's a lot of people in his personal circle who didn't know the demons that he had. So, you know, if I had that as an option, like I probably would talk to him like 100%. But, you know, I'm not like Jamie Foxx playing Ray, like, you know what I mean? I didn't have like access to him, you know, like Leon with Little Richard or whatever, where it's just like he was coming to set every day or something like that. And I was just like I wish I could have had that power. It's like, no, Ted can't come to set today. I'm Malcolm and I'm acting. Like, it's just, you know, so I honestly thank you for giving me a chance to clear that up. But you know, if I could have, you know, I think that was me emphasizing I had very little access to the information about Ted. And so hopefully I do the essence of those periods of his life justice.
I think there's really no right way to do it because, you know, sometimes if the family or the actor is or the person you're portraying is too involved, that can be dangerous. I wouldn't want somebody on set watching me be them, you know, for any period of time. So I think it's just a case by case basis.
Yeah. And, you know, I honestly, you know, this is probably the second or third time I've done a biographical film, and your access to them as actors always ranges. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? I've had one where, you know, one of the lead people being portrayed was around set a couple of times, and, you know, and I still didn't know their whole story, even they were around, you know what I mean? And, you know, there's all these guards of production and studios and things that happen in between that. So you don't really get all the access that you necessarily think you might have.
Well, you all did such a wonderful job. I want to thank you so much for joining us today, for sharing your craft and your stories with your fellow actors. And again, congratulations on the season.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.